But you talked about the flex positions sort of changing the overall scheme and strategy of it all. What positions do you guys like to play in those flex positions? Because I find myself putting running backs in those positions every single time.
That's what most people
because
do,
they're stable.
Yeah.
So what positions do you guys tend to play in those flex positions?
I mean, I think ideally it's the running back position for me. I think they're less volatile from week to week. But if you're in a situation where round 6, round 7, you hit on, a Stephon Diggs type, a la 2020.
Like the champ right here.
Then then he's in your flex position.
Yeah.
And especially if you drafted, Devontae Adams and I don't know, whatever, higher end wide receivers. Some wide receivers, you're just not going to sit. Mm-hmm. But for me, that's the thing. Just try and think retroactively. Try to think back to being in the 2020 season. You got Mike Evans on your team. We all like Mike Evans from just a player standpoint, a fantasy standpoint. Okay, 4th, 5th round, whatever. Think back to when he was playing the Saints and when he had to line up against Marshawn Lattimore. And we've all seen the stats, his stats against Marshawn Lattimore. Mm-hmm. You have some serious question marks about whether you even want to start that player, right? Mm-hmm. And I think it's a lot easier for running backs that you can just sort of kind of put them out there. And it's the right type of running back, okay? It's not all running backs. It's the right type of running back. So sometimes you don't have a choice, but for me, yes, ideally I luck out and get the best running backs, and I can just, I have a stable floor with high upside as opposed to wide receivers for me, who I think are a little bit more volatile.
Yeah. I do think to some extent this actually could be a zero running back conversation, because that's kind of the approach zero running back players have. They're trying to draft these high-end wide receivers, almost 4 straight, and basically fill their flex positions with high-end wide receivers and then make up ground later with the running backs. So, I don't know. Me personally, I feel like I'm okay with all the options. Wide receiver, running back, tight end. I want to go with the option that I feel like is going to score the most points. Yeah. That's really what it comes down to. It's truly that simple. Who is going to score the most points for me? Sometimes you can have a roster where you have 4 strong running backs, or maybe 3 strong ones and a good replacement, and you feel comfortable putting those 4 running backs in there, and you're like, let's go, let's ride. Other times, you can have a roster where you have your Dalvin Cook, your James Robinson from last year, and then you just have these receivers that you don't know which one is going to hit, but all of them have the potential to just go off. Yeah, like your Diggs, and you're not going to sit Diggs and play David Johnson, And
I recall having that same issue, the 2019 season. I don't remember the exact team, but I remember I had wide receivers like John Brown and Terry McLaurin. And if you don't remember, John Brown had a season in 2019.
Was that with the Ravens?
I forget.
Maybe it was the Bills. I think it was the Ravens, but I hear you.
And Terry McLaurin was, not really a household name in 2019.
Rookie, 3rd round pick.
Yeah, and then I had Allen Robinson. I had Michael Thomas on that team. So
that was the year we were on Allen Robinson. Everybody.
Yeah. And so I had some tough decisions in terms of like which wide receivers I was going to play that year. But like you said, and I think you brought up a good point about the attrition factor that that plays into the NFL, because I was almost forced to start tight end in my flex, and I did start a tight end.
That is actually exactly what I was going to end on. I think I prefer. If I have the right tight ends in the FFPC format, I think I might prefer if my tight ends were in this. Because for me, I don't draft tight ends high. So if I have a tight end that's worthy enough to play in my flex, that means that was a luxury pick. Which means my other roster spots are probably pretty solid. If I feel like I can put my tight ends in my flex, including the tight end spot, and still succeed, I feel like that's going to be a very strong, strong team. Absolutely. Now obviously, if I'm taking tight ends early, like 3-4 tight ends, I'm sorry, not 4, but 2 or 3 tight ends in the first 5 rounds, then most likely the rest of my roster spots are not as strong. So in that aspect, probably not. But if I build my team the way I typically like to build my team, and if I take a tight end early, great. But my other tight ends are probably going to be later picks, and they're still good enough to play in my flex. That is going to be a damn good team.
Yeah.
So again, for me, it's any position, any position.
And honestly, it's a week by week proposition for me because we talk a lot about drafting and and sort of kind of our approach to team build and team construction, but there's just so much more that goes in as far as season long management.
I know, man. We should write a book, bro.
No, I don't want to do that.
I know. We can do one of those books where you just talk and it records the whole thing.
Nobody wants to read that.
Hey, I can talk, but I ain't gonna write it.
Yeah, I know.
So.
You could write a novel.
Yeah, I can talk. Just put it in front
volumes.
of me. I'll talk.
You probably have 10 volumes out in a month. But yeah, so like for me, week 15 is going to look very different than week 16, which is going to look very different than week 17.
Oh, we didn't even mention there might be teams that sit their players near the end of the season. Not just for that last week of the season, but maybe the second to the last week of the season. Like, we just have no idea how teams
extra
are going to
game. They may
this.
lock up. I mean, this just and there's a lot of variables. So we don't know, but there's just a lot that you have to take into account. I mean, you're really going to have to manage your team.
By the way,
this year,
don't forget, COVID is still out there. We might still have players that cannot play because they have to sit due to COVID restrictions.
Mm-hmm. People are still drafting only one QB. No,
you saw what COVID did to us last year.
Yeah.
It was crazy. FFPC literally had to change.
Yeah.
FFPC literally had to change the waiver rules to where waivers instead of running Wednesday and Friday, it started to run Wednesday and Sunday, and I think that changed that like 2 or 3 times during the season.
That was painful.
So please don't forget. COVID is out there. Take into account. I'm not trying to get political any way, shape, or form here. Just know that it could affect the season or your fantasy roster in some way, shape, or form. So be prepared.
Closer towards the season, we're going to be finding out who's vaccinated and who's not, who has to adhere to a certain protocol and who doesn't. It's going to be interesting.
Are they going to release that information, or it's going to be like a HIPAA?
It might be a HIPAA violation. I'm not quite sure, but I feel like that's going to be something that's going to be very, very difficult to hide. I think
maybe. You're probably right
because there are certain provisions that are put in place for or certain rules,
right? So it's going to definitely be publicated somewhere, so somebody's going to know. So you're right.
So we'll see, yeah. And then obviously certain players have certain stances on the vaccinations and whatnot. So we'll see.
So now y'all got me thinking because of my infamous auto draft team. I have Noah Fant and I also have Mark Andrews. And so now I'm thinking about maybe I should put Mark Andrews in this flex position.
So when you have multiple, I'm going to speak on this because I have this one team that I just love, and I just feel like I truly, was fortunate in terms of how the board fell to me. Mm-hmm. I was drafting out of the 3 spot, and I ended up going Kelsey because I feel like it's very tough to get Kelsey these days if you don't have that 3 spot. He typically goes there in most FFPC drafts, again, which is a tight end premium league. Mm-hmm. So,
have we spoke on tight end premium in the past?
Yeah, we've talked about it a little bit.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Okay. So, coming back around in the second round, my thought is that I drafted a tight end this early. I need to start hammering running backs. I need to wait on quarterbacks and ideally wide receivers if I can. But Kittle falls to me. Mm-hmm. Okay, and so my first thought is we talked about Kittle. We're not huge fans of Kittle, but he's still going to be, top end target leader in that offense. Okay,
and he's still a beast.
I
like athletic big tight ends.
and he's still a beast. So I was like, okay, he's obviously fell way past ADP, and I'm thinking to myself again, we'll have different topics, when it comes to trying to differentiate your team from the rest of the field. But I figured to myself, okay, how many Kelsey Kittle teams are there really out there? Mm-hmm. So I was like, all right, I'm drafting multiple teams. It's not my typical build, so let me get Kittle. So now I said, I really got to hammer running back. I cannot draft another quarterback, right? So
another tight end, you mean?
Yeah. Or definitely not another tight end. If I can't draft another tight end or another quarterback, for another 10 rounds or something like that. So I got, Kelsey Kittle started. So, round 3 comes back, and I just, take the best running back off the board. It ends up being DeAndre Swift. I felt very fortunate. Okay, even at that 303 to get him. Obviously, we need him to kind of hit, but he's number 1 running back, so I'm fine with that. So round 4 comes around. Yeah, round 4 comes around. I'm like, I just need a running back. I mean, I may have to settle. Am I going to have to reach for a Mike Davis? I'm just I'm dreading this whole. Hopefully Miles Sanders, who's been free falling down boards lately. Nope. I think Mike Davis goes, Miles Sanders obviously goes, Chris Carson's gone, and not to necessarily expect the Carson or those guys to fall, but we hope. So Mahomes falls. So we've talked about stacking in the past, and I'm not into drafting Mahomes, but he's fallen late into the 4th round. I do have Kelsey, so now I start thinking to myself, okay, how many teams have a Kelsey Kittle Mahomes team? Mm-hmm. And I knew that there wasn't at this point. I'm just looking at the running backs, and I'm like, you know what? I'm out. Okay, I'm not gonna sacrifice my team by reaching on a running back that's gonna have a lot of issues. So I go ahead and get Mahomes, okay, because I figured there's probably not a lot of teams that have Kelsey, Kittle, and Mahomes. And then I got DeAndre Swift again. The team's gonna hinge on DeAndre Swift. So 5th round comes around. And again, in my mind, I'm thinking I got my tier of wide receivers. And I'm just like, as long as I get, and I got one guy that's just he's at the top of the tier. But as long as I get somebody in that tier, I'm gonna be happy with. Be fine with. Well, Mike Evans falls. So now I have Kelsey, Kittle,
and you took Mike Evans,
Mahomes, and I have Mike Evans. Okay, so
5th round.
Yeah.
Okay.
5th round. So now 6th round comes around. Okay, I'm like, all right, I need to. Hopefully some running back. Maybe maybe some Chase Edmonds.
Right.
Trey Sermon, obviously, I'll take Trey Sermon there. Those guys are gone. So, falls to me.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Can we edit this?
I remember. I remember
Can we
this
start talking about this right now?
Now I remember this.
Falls to me, okay? So now I take
Yeah.
And then I'm not going to go through the entire draft, but
everybody's going to now try to copy this exact draft.
No, it's not.
They're going to try to copy that exact.
I'm not saying that this team is amazing, but
pick for pick.
But the reason that I brought up this team is because you would think that Kelsey is my tight end or Kittle is my tight end. No, Kelsey and Kittle are my flex
spots. Yeah,
and is my tight end 1. And so I think if you can getting back to your point, if you hit on tight end, whether it's early or late, or early and late, or just late, you hit on multiple tight ends.
Yeah.
If they perform and they outperform, because if you go look at a healthy Kittle and obviously a healthy Kelsey and how they perform against the field, I'm basically killing people at their flexes.
Yeah.
And if plays, does what breaks out, then I'm at least at par with the rest of the field.
Yeah.
So I think if you kind of think about it like that, from that standpoint, you can, like you said, getting back to who do you want in your flex? Probably
it might be tight end the more we talk about it.
I don't know. Yeah, it could be anything.
Because here's the crazy thing about tight end with a tight end premium format. Your tight end can have a basic, simple, non-spectacular game.
6 for 70.
Exactly. And put up crazy numbers.
6 for 50.
I don't want to say crazy,
6
but have
for 50.
a good game compared to any other position.
6 for 50 gets you 15
so
points.
take that and now put the potential of the tight end actually having a good game.
Oh, and we're seeing these receiving tight ends. They can put up monsters.
Like monsters. He doesn't have to go crazy.
Yeah,
and he'll put up good numbers. What if he went crazy?
Yeah. And that was my thought with starting Logan Thomas and George Kittle last year.
Right.
And that was not a traditional build for me. That was not a traditional build. I did have a team last year where I drafted. I want to say 3 tight ends with my first 6 pick, and I had the same excitement, but those tight ends did not hit. They were like Mark Andrews, Zach Ertz, and then I forget someone else, and I think George Kittle. And George Kittle was injured most of the season.
Right.
So,
and also the problem with that is if you do that type of build where you pick these tight ends early, you have to hit on your later picks somewhere. You have to have a good enough draft where you're able to fill in the holes, because the well dries up very quickly in those other positions.
I think I ended up. I have David Johnson. And y'all can laugh about David Johnson all you want.
Go to
I just need him to start off for the first few weeks, and then I can kind of figure out what my running back. And then I have a lot of I think younger running backs and some potential running backs that can fill that spot, I think, later in the season. Of course, I'll hit waiver wire.
They're about to do this exact same draft when they get in their next FFPC. Abby did it. Shh. We about to do it, too.
I'm telling you, I did this in 2020, and it failed. So I'm not. This is not necessarily the year.